morning, and welcome to the show-anniversary. That's the word we're going to use today. The show-anniversary of Healthy and Whole.
Mind, body, and soul.
This is our 1-year anniversary. We started with this show in this month last year, and God has blessed us to be back in the show again this year. So big round of applause. Put some claps in the chat if you're watching, all that good stuff. So we're happy to be here. We're happy y'all have put up with us for a year. All of our antics and, Shawnee, how much she likes to talk. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
I do like to talk, though.
But if this is your first time watching, my name is Dr. Leonard Presley. I am a physical therapist and somebody who is overly and completely invested in health and wellness, both mind, body, and soul. And this is my beautiful wife. You want to introduce yourself?
I am Shawnee Presley. I have a master's of public administration, and I love health. I am a fanatic, so I do it all over the house.
Exactly.
And the children.
And me. She likes to put me on diets unbeknownst to me. I just see dinners change and have no clue as to why.
But you love every bit of it.
Sometimes. You're batting about 95.
All right, let's get back to the show. Healthy and Whole.
Mind, body, and soul. I'm feeling good today. First, we want to thank the Reaching Church, Brooklyn, the Apostolic Faith Brooklyn, 265 as we call them, Brother Heraclio John Wyatt Jr. and his lovely wife, Sister Paulette Wyatt. This was their brainchild, and they brought us on board and asked us to be a part. So we thank God for the opportunity to do so. Thank them for all of their support. To the tech team there in Brooklyn, thank you for putting up with all of our lighting issues and everything. It's a venture, but God has been blessing, right?
Yes. I'm sure you guys have seen over the year how we've improved.
Right. We're trying every little bit. This one's always shopping to decorate what you see behind you. I just go, yes, baby, that looks nice. But now, on to the topic for today. What month is this?
It's Women's Month. It's our month, women. Our month.
Y'all deserve more than a month. Y'all great. I'm gonna let you be great tonight.
Thank you very much.
It is Women's Health Month, and we want to talk about all of the things that are impacting women's health in the country, in the world, in the community. So to hopefully arm you with some knowledge to be better at taking care of yourself. We know our women are always taking care of everybody else, but this month is about you. It's about you. It's about you. So,
without further ado, I listen to this YouTube guy. He always says, "Without further ado, let's introduce."
Oh, we got an amazing guest tonight. Young lady who is crushing it, if I put it mildly. But I'm going to let you read her bio.
So let's go ahead. I'm going to give you a short bio of Dr. Black. Dr. Leanne Black was born in Frederick, Maryland to Linworth and Ethline, excuse me. And I asked her already. Excuse me, Dr. Black. Ethline Black. Dr. Black attended Claflin University, where she earned her bachelor's in science in biochemistry. Dr. Black ultimately attended the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, Greenville, and graduated in 2018. She is currently in her chief year of obstetrics and gynecology residency and is a captain in the U.S. Army. Now she is definitely doing it.
I told you, she's crushing it.
In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her family, especially her niece and 2 nephews. Her goal is to strengthen the physician-patient relationship and empowering patients to make decisions that's best for them by arming them with the knowledge that they need. And that's what she's about to do for us today.
Put your hands together and let's welcome Dr. Leanne Black. Hello, Dr. Leanne. How are you?
How are you? I'm good. It's so good to see you guys.
It's good to see you as well. It's been a long time. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Leanne was one of my students when I was a professor at Claflin, and now she's the boss. She's the big boss now. So I would respectfully refer to her as Dr. Leanne or Dr. Black all night. How are you doing? Good to see
you. Man, I'm doing so well. And before we start, I know that you weren't expecting this, but I just wanted to give you your flowers while you were still alive. For people that are watching, Dr. Presley was my anatomy and physiology teacher. There were a lot of us that looked up to him and went to him, not just for school stuff, but for life stuff. We used to tell him that he needed a couch in his office because we used to go to him so much for advice. But he did a great job. And I'm just going to speak for me, just for, just encouraging me throughout my journey. You're definitely somebody who left an impression in my life. And I just want to say thank you for the endless amount of support and encouragement that you always provided.
Aww.
Girl, you try to make me cry. Don't do that. I'm trying to be strong. It's Women's Health Month. But you know what? It was a blessing. It was an honor and a privilege for me to be a part of that journey for you and your classmates. Shani will often tell you, when I reflect on those days, when I think back to those times, those were some of the times that were most special to me, because to see you and your other classmates go through the college struggle, and not just struggle, but succeed in a great way, and then leave from where I was. And I think shortly after they left, I left.
Yeah.
Y'all just tore my heart out.
Yeah.
But I know you had to leave. But y'all left, I left, I was out. But I thank you. I really do appreciate it. It's an honor for me to have been a part of the small contribution I made to the success that you're enjoying right now. But I thank you. I appreciate those flowers. I'm going to plant those seeds and keep them. He's
being very modest, you guys. He's being very modest because he's learned so much through you guys.
I did.
It allowed him to see young people in a different light, not just understand that they're just having an attitude just to have an attitude, or they're just not coming to class not to come to class. He understands deeper why young people behave the way they do, and to be that open door for you guys.
Yeah, so y'all were a blessing to me too. Y'all were a big blessing to me, and I appreciate it. Especially you, Miss Claflin, as you will always refer to around my house.
Yes.
So now, I talked to you earlier today, and now for those of you that don't know or didn't catch it in her bio, Dr. Black is the chief resident. You're at Fort Bragg, correct?
I am currently at Fort Bragg, yes. Doing an obstetrics and gynecology residency. And
listen, when I think about the Dr. Black that I knew in college, and to hear her tell me what she's doing now, I'm like, man, she's crushing it. She's doing a great job. From what the little bit I've heard, and I get to see following her on Instagram, she's doing an amazing job. And it is, again, I want to say thank you for being here to help us educate our viewers and those who may be watching now or may watch 5 years from now, to educate them on improving women's health. That's what this is all about. And again, this is women's health, so I want to stay in my lane.
He's gonna jump in.
No, I'm gonna try my best not to, but this is women's health.
But Dr. Black, I would like for you to just tell us what you do and kind of what is your daily rundown when you go to work.
Okay. So to start, I'm doing my residency on a military base at a military hospital. The reason why is because the military paid for med school for me, and one of the requirements was that I had to complete my training at a military facility, and then following, I would work for them. So our patient population at baseline is very healthy. But when I go into work, it really depends on the rotation that I'm on. Fourth year, we have 3 rotations. They're each 4 months long. And so right now I'm on my high-risk rotation, where we see a bunch of high-risk patients. I'll do a lot of things with the junior residents on labor and delivery. I have a couple clinic days. I'm doing a lot of counseling, like on genetic conditions. So it's not as heavy surgical-wise this time around. I'm in the clinic a lot. So on Monday and Tuesday, I'll probably get to work around like 5:30, 6 in the morning, because the junior residents have to sign out all of the patients to me. Following that, I'll go round with my staff and, we'll tackle anything on the to-do list, discharge patients that need to be discharged. Following that, clinic starts. And so I'm doing a lot of ultrasounding, a lot of counseling patients who are finding out, devastating diagnoses of the child that they have or that they're carrying. We do a lot of counseling with that. I might truck on over to labor and delivery if, one of the junior residents call me and they feel like they need help with something, or they want to run through a difficult patient with me. And then I'm there until about 5 or 6 o'clock. On Wednesdays, it's our academic day. So we have academics in the morning, and then again, I have a clinic in the afternoon where I'm downstairs just doing regular OB care. So I'm seeing a lot of the uncomplicated OB patients. On Thursdays, I actually have a gyne clinic. They just throw it in there for continuity. So I see people who just come in for like, you know, their annual exams, or they have fibroids and want to talk about it, or they want to talk about having surgery. And then on Fridays, I'm back up in the MFM clinic.
That sounds like a pretty full week to me.
Yes, that is amazing.
Yeah. And then, on the weekends, so there's 3 of us per class. And so my co-residents and I, we take call every 3rd weekend. So every 3rd Friday, I work a 24. So I come into work, I'm in the clinic, and then I'm on until Saturday morning. And Friday night, I'm covering the deck and kind of like holding down the hospital with another resident. And then I come back in on Sunday and I do the same thing. So that happens every 3rd week.
Wow. Is this what you're doing right now? Is it what you want to continue to do? Or when your time is up with the military, will you go into a different avenue of gynecology?
That's a rough question. And the reason why is because residency is like the gauntlet. So I feel like we're consistently under a lot of stress, and I feel like a lot of things that we say that we don't want to do is different when you're done, because you're the attending, you're the one who's like making the final decision and calling the shots. I do know that when I'm done with the military, I want to continue practicing medicine. My co-resident and I, she has become my best friend. This girl is like my rock. We've talked about opening our own practice. So we're kind of like looking into that, like the business side of things, so we can start to set that up. But I definitely intend to stay engaged.
Good deal. Good deal. So in your most recent experience, clinical experience, what has been the most pressing issues in women's health that you've been facing that you see most frequently? Like, what are the things that continually crop up that people need to address?
Yeah, so I can list, there's a bunch, to be honest. But just like thinking off the top of my head, so cancer, breast cancer specifically. And I'm going to list these things, but I'm also going to talk about African Americans as a subset. Black women are 31% more likely to die from breast cancer. It gets diagnosed later. They don't get as, I want to say, like their treatments often aren't as aggressive. Cervical cancer is another issue. Unfortunately, we, in this world, this developed world, we are at higher risk for getting cervical cancer. Reproductive health is an issue. So like our young women, a lot of them are contracting STDs just because a lot of them don't have the education. A lot of them don't know that there are services out there available to them. As far as maternal health, that's a big thing that you might hear, going around the news lately, but our maternal health is not that good to be, a first world country. So our maternal and morbidity rate for the U.S. is 17.4 deaths per 100,000 births, which is not good. If you compare it to somewhere like Canada, theirs is 7.5 deaths per 100,000 births. So that's a big thing that you hear going around. And then especially as a Black female, Black women, so like me, with a terminal degree, I am 50% more at risk to die from childbirth than a white or Hispanic person with less than a high school degree. So we're being affected disproportionately. And I don't even have kids yet, and I do this for a job, and I'm just going to be straight up, like I'm terrified to have kids. Other things like domestic violence against women, that's something that I kind of feel like we gloss over a little bit. Mental health is another big one. Women are more likely to suffer from like anxiety and depression compared to men. Depression or like suicide from depression is one of the leading causes of death in women. So those are just a few off the top.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm almost at a pause.
Yeah, no.
All I can say is thank God I was able to have 4 children, and I'm still here.
Still here. That is true. Now, what do you think accounts for those big gaps, especially the disparities you see between our community or the African American community and other communities? Because we're more educated now, probably as a community, than we've ever been. We're probably at a better place in this country. What is still the reason for such a great disparity?
Yes.
So a term that you might hear like being thrown around is implicit bias. That's a big thing in the medical community these days. And it's just underlying biases that physicians have towards patients that look like us.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it's proven. I remember I read an article about how they did a test and they asked a group of med students about like pain. And they said in their test, or the answers that they selected was that we don't need as much pain medication because our skin is tougher and we can tolerate pain better. And so it's just little things like that people, they believe it. And that affects how they care for us. Something else is people who are, they're like in lower income situations. They might not have the same access to care that their white friend who goes to school down the street may have, like they might not be exposed to the same things. And so there's a lot that they just don't know at baseline because they're not exposed to it. And then that delays care. So things like that.
Wow.
So how can we as a community, and it's not just African Americans, it's people from the islands, sometimes it's Hispanics too, because they're considered as brown people. How can we improve that gap? What can we do as a people, not just us, but everyone, to help them enhance their education so when they go into the doctor's office and they kind of notice these things, that they can have the right words to say?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer your question for a second, but I'm going to start just by saying like what we can do as medical professionals. One, I do think that institutions are doing a good job of just kind of recognizing that this exists and calling it to the forefront, just so that it's on the forefront of people's minds. But something that we can do as physicians is to call it out when we see it. Like I am notorious for this. If I feel like you're treating a patient differently, we're going to have a talk. We're going to have a talk about it. And if I feel like this patient is not getting the best care, homie, hand that patient right on over to me. I'll take care of her. So I think just checking in a respectful way your colleagues or suggesting things to them and maybe opening their eyes can help combat some of that. Now, from a patient perspective, the best thing that you can do is arm yourself with knowledge. And it gets a little difficult because I know like as soon as something happens, people will hop on Google and then Google tells you that you're dying. But if you look for reputable sources, there are websites out there that you can depend on. For example, like if I'm Googling cancer, don't go to Wikipedia, go to the American Cancer Society. Just be really careful about where you get your information from. Coming to the appointment with questions written down. Feel free to bring somebody with you because a lot of times we give a lot of instruction to patients and sometimes you don't remember everything that was said. And so if you bring somebody with you, there's a better chance that you might remember. You can also tell your doctor to write it down. And then if you're not feeling comfortable, always ask for a second opinion.
Oh, wow. Now, let me ask this
Hold
question.
on, I just have to say this because Leonard, when you just said have somebody with you, I had an appointment last year and I was talking to Leonard about it and he reminded me, the doctor said X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I don't remember the doctor saying that. And he was like, yes, you was too busy looking at pictures while he was talking. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, is that correct?
Right, this is true. So let's start with, this is Women's Health Month. Now, I know the women in my life, whether they be family members, whether they be, co-workers, or whether they be friends and acquaintances, they don't seem to be the type that don't ask for things. And men out there, you get a test. Be out to dinner with a woman when she's ordering food. It's never non-specific. They know exactly. So what do you think is the reason why you would go into a doctor's office and just kind of take it as it comes rather than take charge? Is that a thing with women's health And if so, how do you address
To
it?
be honest, I think it's a little intimidating. It is a little intimidating walking into the doctor's office because it's just like, I feel like doctors are kind of, and I'm not saying that this is right, but like, they're put on this pedestal, they go to school for a lot of things. And so even thinking that they might be wrong is an odd thought, right? Even though we're human and we make mistakes. And so I think that it's I could see as a patient if I did not have the knowledge that I had, I would be intimidated going into the doctor's office because it's just a different atmosphere. And you're seeing somebody who's the expert and, you're not the expert. So it's kind of just like, I know a lot of patients who have said like, well, they were the doctor. And so I just figured it was right.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now let me ask this question. From your experience or even from an advice perspective, if you had to start with, you have a woman who is having some health issues and not really taking charge, how do you empower that woman to take charge of her health? Like, what is the first step for them to take?
And sometimes it could be the person's personality too. They may not be a take charge type person.
Right.
So what is your advice?
For me, I think my goal, because it's so easy for us to jump to conclusions about a patient or label a patient non-compliant and put that in their chart, which I don't feel like it's fair to them. But for me, my main goal is to meet you at your level. So, and you can ask my patients. I talk to my patients just like this. I don't use fancy medical jargon, like I don't try and make myself sound like somebody who knows everything. But if I sense something in my patient, I will literally stop the appointment and I will say, yo, what's going on? Like, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling a vibe. Is there something that you want to share with me? Do you feel like, if you trust me enough, do you feel like there's something that I'm not touching or I'm looking over? Like you can talk to me. It's like, help me help you. I just need to know what's going on. So I feel like one, just trying to understand where they come from. And then once you understand that, you can understand their motivation and you can tap into that. And then as soon as you tap into that and you just tell them like, hey, this is a team thing. Like, I want to do the best for you. I am your number one advocate. But if you're not meeting me, this is like a relationship. If you're only giving 50% or less and not even meeting me in the middle, there's only so much I can do for you.
Right. Very true. Very true. That's good. Now, I want to circle back to something you said. And look, don't let me do all the talking. This is women's health.
No, go ahead. You have questions.
I'm going to circle back to something about the pain, the scenario with the doctors being surveyed about the administration of pain medicines and how that bias towards, hey, like our community requires less. When women, I'm going to stick with women here. Women, especially in our community, are always seen as that they're the rock of the family. They're expected, or not even expected, but they're depended on to do so much.
And that's not what we don't put ourselves there, but y'all put us there.
Wait, don't say y'all. I don't do that.
No. I'm just saying sometimes
I'm hurt.
Women, all women in all walks of life, we don't ask to be put in those pedestals or on those I'm strong positions, but we get put there, so we try to fulfill it. And when you talked about, Dr. Black, mental health, that's where anxiety and depression comes from. But go ahead, what you were saying. But we don't ask to be put there.
Well, and I know that. I definitely know that because, people don't ask to be strong. They just are.
Yeah.
And so, but when someone is strong, when they are resistant, when they do shoulder a lot, how do you encourage them or educate them, or what are your thoughts about taking that person who's always strong and helping them to understand that they can be helped as well, and they don't have to always be that person to carry that burden? Like, they can take charge of their own well-being, not just look out for everybody else's.
I think I just try to, just connect with the patient. I'm a very open and transparent person. And so, like, for example, if I notice a patient is coming in and they just seem off, like I know this patient and they seem off, or I might suspect that they might be suffering from depression just based on things that they've told me. And, you know, I'm trying to suss it out of them and I'm not getting it. If the opportunity arises, I'm going to go ahead and let them know, like, yo, I'm taking antidepressants right now. Like, I would not be able to do my job if I didn't take care of myself first. Like, if I'm not filling my cup, I can't properly take care of you. Like, we are all in this together. You can't think that I'm not over here not suffering or not going through anything. So it's like, you have to be your own biggest advocate. You have to. And so I feel like once you can impress that upon them, and they really, sometimes it takes them a while, but like they really get it, or it's just like, oh, it's not just me going through this. Like even Dr. Black has problems. Then I think that they're more likely to hop on board.
Okay, that's great.
Well, I have another question. You say you deal with population of patients. How do you deal with like young teens, young adults, and then older women? I know you have to approach each of them differently, because I know sometimes some people, the younger kids may not understand what's going on and they want to figure out what's going on. The middle-aged woman, I know something's going on, so you tell me what's wrong. And then the older person is like, I already know what's going on, just give me whatever medicine. How do you move between all of that?
I think thankfully I just have experience with it, you know, like I've been a teenager. I know exactly how teenagers think. I'm currently in my 30s. So I can imagine how a 30-year-old woman thinks. My mom is in her 60s, and my grandma, before she died, was in her 90s. And I have very close relationships with both of those women. And so it's like you can't help but know how to navigate through those spaces. You know what I'm saying? So like for the teenager, it's like, I already know that you think that you know everything. That's fine. So why don't you tell me something that you think that I don't know? Let's start there. That can open the door. Or like the 30-something-year-old who comes in and, you know, they're like, I know something's going on. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. I'm not sure. And then I just start to probe a little deeper. Like, what do you think is going on? What else have you noticed? What other symptoms have you noticed? With the older women, sometimes they don't know what's going on. They'll tell you something and they know it's odd, but they don't know. And so you kind of have to say like, ma'am, this is not normal. Like what you're telling me right now, this is not normal. So I'm so glad that you came in so that we can get to the bottom of it. I don't know. You just have to kind of know your audience. And the thing is, when they give you something, you just got to snatch it and go with it.
Right. And you talked now, getting back kind of to helping women improve their health. When it comes to conditions, you know, whether it be cancer, whether it be the mental health, what are there underlying factors that can be managed that contribute to these things? Or is it kind of this is the hand you're dealt? Now we have to, you know, can we prevent or can we manage? Like, is there a difference between some of the, like, especially with cancer, mental health, reproductive health? Is it more heavily weighted on what you're dealt or more heavily weighted on how you manage it? What would you say?
To me, I think it's how you manage it. The only time that I would say, you know, unfortunately, you have to deal with the hand that you're dealt is if you inherit things like, you know, like Lynch syndrome. You're at such a high risk of colon cancer and endometrial cancer, and, you know, you were just born into that life. I'm sorry. But just the general population, so many things can be prevented by keeping a healthy weight, you know, cutting certain things out your diet, not smoking, not drinking as much. These are just, or getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, getting enough fiber. Like all of these things, they seem really little, but in the grand scheme of things, they make such a big difference. And so I think sometimes patients get aggravated when we're always like, all right, let's talk about what you're doing at home. Like, what are you eating? Right. You smoking? Like you vaping, you smoking? Like they get mad because you get all in their business, but it's like if we can make these minor tweaks, you will be surprised at how much you can improve your health, and not only that, improve your longevity. Like if you stop if you are a pack-a-day smoker and you stop smoking today, in about 5 years, your lungs are going to look like you never smoked at all. So I just getting patients to understand these things, I think, is the first step.
Right.
I have two questions. The first one is, how do you deal with patients that are a challenge to deal with and truly feel like what you're saying is not true? You're too young to be a doctor. How do you deal with that? And then the next question is, I think I might have a what do you call those things? A conception of, they tell you have to be a certain age to get checked for certain cancers or mammograms and stuff like that. Is that true? If you feel something isn't right, how do you push your doctor to check those things?
Yeah, so I do get a lot of that, that you're too young, especially because I don't wear makeup to work. Like I just go into work barefaced. And so I get told that I look like I'm in my 20s. Or like one older lady came in the other day and she was like, you look like you're my granddaughter's age. And I was like, oh, well, how old is your granddaughter? And she was like, 19. And I was like, okay. But I mean, so when they say you're too young to know what you're talking about, it's just like, but you came to the doctor's office.
Right.
And I can assure you that I'm the doctor. And so, I mean, you don't have to take this advice, but if you want it, I got it for you,
Right.
I really don't force myself on anybody. I don't do that at all. So that's my answer to that. And then when it comes to getting, certain exams or certain screening tests done at certain ages, like, yes, there are standard ages for which you start doing things, like you start getting pap smears at 21. You start getting screened for colon cancer. Now it's age 45. The American Cancer Society changed that. You start getting screened for breast cancer at a specific age. But again, those are guidelines. Nothing is ever black and white in medicine, and nobody is ever the same. And so if you just have to listen to your patient. You got to listen to your patient. If you listen to the patient, they tell you exactly what is going on with them. And so if somebody comes to me and I know that they became sexually active at an earlier age, they're having postcoital bleeding or bleeding after sex, and they're having this symptom and that symptom, and they're not 21, like, just because they're not 21 doesn't mean that I'm not going to do a pap smear. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think if you're a patient and you're going to the doctor and you're saying, hey, I really think I need to get checked for this. Like, I am really feeling something is not right, and your doctor brushes you off, you need to find another doctor.
Wow.
As easy as that sound, Dr. Black, you say find another doctor, but sometimes it's difficult. We're kind of going through this right now.
Facts.
Where Leonard went to a doctor and I kind of felt the way I felt, but they kept showing him the nurse practitioner. I was like, you need to see an actual MD. And for some reason, it was just been a fiasco for him to see an MD. So we want to find a new doctor, but it's like, it's a hesitant of, if I go to another doctor, am I going to go through this same thing? How do I find a new doctor that may fit the criteria that I'm looking for? Is there a Yelp thing that I can look up and find a doctor? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's honestly very difficult. If I was not, where I was, I would just start with Google. You can find reviews on any and everybody out there. Second of all, word of mouth. Like, if you know somebody that likes their doctor, you can ask them, like, hey, would you recommend that I see your doctor? Figure out if they take your health insurance, and you can try them out. Unfortunately, sometimes it can be like speed dating, and you might not like them and you might have to move on. But it starts with you just being curious about what's out there. Like I will literally, I did this for my sister the other day. OBGYNs in Atlanta, enter. And then we started going down the list. And then I started looking at their credentials. And then, you know, if a name popped out to me, like I might have seen her on a Facebook group or something like that, or I know somebody who knows her, I'm texting them like, yo, what do you think about Dr. So-and-so? I might be trying to send my sister to her. So you kind of have to do a little digging, and it is a little annoying, but I feel like if more people would kind of do their homework before they go, then they might be happily surprised.
Right. Question about the testing. Now, I know you talked about earlier some income restrictions that may affect our healthcare. Now, you know, kind of disparities that happen. So let's say somebody is having symptoms that something may be going on in the way of maybe a breast cancer or something like that, but they're not at the age for testing. How would you advise them if they're hesitant because of their potential costs, because they're not at the insurance delineated age to have certain tests or procedures done? Have you ever had that happen? And how do you encourage people, or what would you say to our audience to say, hey, this is how you should handle that situation?
Yes.
So one of the benefits of working in the military system is that they don't pay for health care. So I don't have to make decisions based on a patient's, you know, capabilities financially. That just doesn't exist in the military. But as far as billing and coding, there's a way around everything. It really just depends on how you word it in your note or the consult that you put in. And a lot of patients don't know that, but doctors do. And so really you kind of have to find a doctor that cares enough, and it sounds bad because it's kind of like cheating the system, but cares enough, like, hey, this patient is really concerned. I'm essentially just going to have my patient's back, and I'm going to figure out how to make this work. Or sometimes you kind of have to start with less invasive tests and work your way up, and the insurance will cover it that way.
Okay. That's a good point.
Okay.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. Look at me.
You gave her ammunition. Now her doctor's in trouble. I'm going to tell you right now.
But you know what? I am blessed to have, like, when we were pregnant with the twins, I had a situation where my legs were getting swollen. And I was seeing one physician. One partner. And then another part, I just happened to have to see her for something because he was busy or something like that. And I was telling her whatever issues that was going on. And he was like, I don't think it's nothing. Remember, Leonard? No, I don't think it's nothing. And she was like, I don't know, something just doesn't seem right. She's never seen me before. And she was like, go get this test done. And I kind of think they had like a bickering back and forth.
They did.
And come to find out, she was correct. And we end up having to have the twins 6 weeks early. And I was blessed to find her in that way because of how you are with your patients, where she was like, something just isn't right. Even though I don't know you, something just isn't right. And she took initiative about that. Right.
It's good to have doctors to do stuff like that. What issues are you, Dr. Black, what issues are particularly passionate for you to intervene on, whether it be in the military community or just as you were in school, through your practice, what issues, especially among the African American community, what issues are just passionate for you to address, and why do you think that's the case?
Two specifically. One is mental health, just because I am very familiar with it. And I think it's something that's kind of stigmatized in the African American community for no reason, in my opinion. I think a lot of times we try to hold on to our faith as a way of like getting through things. And while I do believe in God, I also believe in medicine. And so I encourage people. That is something that I really look out for in any appointment that I'm in with a patient, because it's important. And if it goes undiagnosed or unrecognized, it could potentially lead to devastating events. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. And then just the maternal health, to be honest, that directly affects me. It affects people that I love and people that I care about. shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be like that stat that I quoted earlier, that I am more like 60% more likely to die than someone else who's less educated than me. And I'm not saying that a less educated person deserves that, but what I'm saying is that is a large margin.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It should, if anything, it should be a lot closer, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I'm very passionate about as well. I am always on alert when I'm on labor and delivery. You can act like the nurses and stuff. I handle things aggressively because nobody's dying on my watch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Gotcha.
So why do you think that gap is so big? Because they're doing the same C-sections or vaginal delivery. It's a woman. Why is it that you don't give the same treatment to another woman than you give to a different one? You understand what I'm saying?
Again, I think it's implicit bias. I really do. I'm going to hang my hat on that one. We're diagnosed with things later. We're overlooked when we say we're in pain. We're overlooked. I don't remember that lady's name, and that's such a shame. But that lady who died from a C-section, and after they made a bill in honor of her, or a law, but she had a C-section, and they were noticing like blood in her catheter bag, and they kept trying to get the nurses, and she was in pain, and nobody was really listening to her, and they didn't listen to her until she was dying. They took her back to surgery way too late. And then, or like Serena Williams, she's another one. She had a baby. She had a history of blood clots in her lungs. She was feeling the exact same symptoms. She kept telling them, hey, I'm feeling these symptoms, and they were dragging their feet. And I mean, I'm sure she had to, get loud or whatever, but when she finally did get the testing, she had a blood clot, So they just don't listen to us. That is it at the end of the day.
Well, I think that's why it's such an impressive thing and an important thing to have young women like yourself in that field, that they can advocate from the other side of it, and then educate us as well, and pass that information along, that we really, if you have to be forceful, then your life is worth that force, I think is a way to put it. From the mental health aspect,
I agree.
You kind of alluded to this about mental health and, community of faith. Sometimes, we tend to shy away from therapies and that sort of thing.
Taboo.
Yeah, it's taboo for, and hopefully we're changing that. Hopefully we're changing that, especially with shows like this. But what should people look for if they think they may be dealing with, this is just a Monday case of the blues, or this is different, this is mental health? Like, what symptoms would you point to say, hey, as a woman, this is something you need to look out for to protect your mental health?
Yes.
If you're feeling these symptoms for greater than 2 weeks, so if you literally say, I feel sad, I've been feeling sad like for the past 2 weeks, and I feel depressed. If you have anhedonia, or that means just like a general, like things that used to excite you or make you happy, you don't want to do it anymore. So like if riding your bike outside made you happy, you just don't care for it. Feelings of guilt, feelings of worthlessness, not being able to focus, either your mind is racing or you're just really sluggish, not being able to sleep very well, or insomnia. Those are a lot of the characteristics of depressed people.
Wow. And I can't answer this as a woman. I'm not a woman, right? Okay. So, but what leads to this? God, that's not what the show's not supposed to be about. That. But what leads to that? Like, what do you think is the biggest contributing factor with women when it comes to the kind of onset of these mental health issues? Like, what is driving the mental health issues that women deal with?
Okay.
Honestly, I think it's a mixed bag of things. I think stress is a factor. Like moms who, they're expected to take care of their household, and then they're expected to go to work, and then they deal with things at work, or they might deal with a boss who's a man who treats her differently than she treats her, than they treat her male counterpart. I think just like navigating through a world that doesn't love us, in my opinion, is like the biggest risk factor, especially as a Black woman, because it's just like you're hit in the face continuously every day. And then at times you experience all that outside, and then when you get home, it's still not a safe place.
Wow. So, okay. So now we've talked about the symptoms of it. We've talked about the, kind of the causes. What do we do when you feel this, when you know it's longer than 2 weeks, these stresses are there? What are the first steps that women should take to really get this addressed?
Your first step is to go to your doctor. And I know that is like taboo for everybody. Nobody wants to go to the doctor and tell them like, hey, yo, I think I'm depressed. Like that makes you look weak. I get it. Or you feel like you should be like you're praying, and so that should take care of it. You need to go to your doctor. You need to tell them exactly what you're feeling. You need to tell them exactly how you're feeling, and you need to come up with a plan. And your plan does not have to include medication. It can just include talk therapy. You can start there if you want to, but you have to start addressing it and finding outlets in some ways. And again, I was raised in the church. My parents are very strict Christians. And I'm not calling them out, but in med school, I was diagnosed with major depression. It was rough. Okay. It was rough. And I remember when I told my mom, and my mom is an amazing mom. She's amazing in every single way. But when I told my mom, she said, "You're not praying enough."
Wow.
That's exactly what my mother said. And I don't think it's her fault. You know what I'm saying? No. I think that it's just something that's just been instilled, and it trickles down, and it goes from generation to generation to generation. And again, I believe in God with everything that I have, but I also believe that He's created avenues down here to navigate this world, because unfortunately I'm in a mortal human body. Okay. So I have to be able to treat this body some way. Prayer is not going to do it alone. And so just when you feel these things, you need to get help. It's not off the wall for a patient to come into my office and break down crying. You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, we see things like this a lot. So it's not like we're going to look at you like you're funny or look at you like you're weird. In any of it, I'm going to have some compassion and even a little bit of empathy, because I know exactly what it is that you're going through. And a lot of other physicians do too. This is not something that we just treat. This is something that we deal with as well. And so I would just say, start with your doctor.
Wow. No. You got any other questions?
No. That was amazing. Especially the part where you said when you asked your mom and she said, just pray. I just want to know, how did you feel when she said that? And what did you say to her as your response when she said, you're not praying enough?
So to start, I was in a little bit of denial myself. I didn't think that I was depressed. I was actually dating a young man in medical school at the time. And I honestly feel that God put him in my life for that reason specifically. He made my doctor's appointment, took me to the doctor. He sat in the doctor's appointment with me with my permission, of course. I got off the medication. I started seeing somebody and talking to somebody. And I kept my mom. When my mom told me that, I just felt like misunderstood, if that makes sense, because I was just like, I am praying. What are you talking about? But I think one thing that helped was that I was very vocal about this, and vocal about everything that I was going through, and vocal about how much it helped. And so that's no longer her answer. But yeah.
And I think it's great to see that even when after that initial conversation might not have been the most productive, your persistence has not only helped you, but it's helped your mom to see it a little bit different. And I think that's what it takes, is being vocal, and not being vocal to degrade or demean someone or bash them, but to really help them see that, look, I'm dealing with something that, you know, even if I'm praying, God may be telling me I need to get help this way, you know. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you were able to not only find that help and peace for yourself,
and you
but help
know,
your mom.
Thinking about your mom, I'm not as old as she is, but I'm a mom and I have younger kids. And sometimes I don't understand what my 12-year-old is going through. And he'll say, Mom, you don't understand. And I could see myself, I've seen myself be your mom to my 12-year-old. And I had to check myself, along with Leonard, had to check me and says, Shawnee, you need to listen to him and see why he's feeling the way he feels. So we as moms are always retrained as well.
Yeah, and I also think a part of it was my fault as well, because I mean, my parents, they live in Maryland and I went to school in South Carolina, so it's not like we saw each other on a consistent basis. But I talked to my mom almost every day, but I wasn't vulnerable with her. Like, I wasn't transparent about what it was that I was feeling, the pressure that I was feeling, all these emotions and thoughts. She thought everything was okay. And so when I told her that I was depressed, it kind of came out of left field. And so I also think like that's probably why that was her initial, like her gut reaction.
Well, and now I'm going to ask a question based on what you just said. Again, women, especially African-American women, God knows he's blessed me with some dynamite women in my life. My wife, my mom, I have aunts and uncles, church mothers. You know, I got an aunt there in Brooklyn that is one of the strongest people I know. But do you think sometimes that unwillingness to be transparent and vulnerable contributes to that pressure? And so finding a space where they could be transparent and vulnerable may be good. Do you think that's a thing?
Yes, I do think it's a thing. I totally think it's a thing, because that used to be me. Like, I wouldn't, if you ask any of my friends, my sisters, they would just be like, Leanne's a very stoic person. Like, we don't really know if she's sad or mad. We know when she's happy, but like everything else, like I had been through, you know, breakups, and they were just like, we never knew that you felt this way about this person because you just moved on. And so I feel like and it's an uncomfortable thing, but you got to open up to people, especially the people that care about you. They're more than willing to be that listening ear, to be a safe space for you. You just have to give them that opportunity.
Right. And I want to say this. I saw this lady on TikTok that women-splains men to women. I want to say this to all my women out there. If you have a man in your life, I know it gets annoying talking to us because we want to fix it. Just tolerate us, because we're listening, but we're fixers. So, I know, like Shawnee will tell me sometimes, look, I don't need you to fix. I just need you to listen. If that's what you need, say that. I know me. I'll just listen. And in my mind, I'm thinking about, well, we could try this. But I know, just shut up and listen. So women, if you need that, and there's a man, there's a dad, or anybody that, for men, if just let them know. Just listen, don't fix. But please, if you feel safe, talk to somebody. You know, I mean, I'm going to be honest. One of the things that when we talk about this, when I talk about or think about mental health, the story of the Miss USA, the young lady, that broke my heart. Think about it, it's my heart. I mean, because I'm like, I'm still in shock. I'm in shock by that. Someone who seemed to have so much, and to know that she felt so alone is a scary thing. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's really sad. And so, again, like I said, I'm very transparent about it. I don't know if you saw Dr. Presley, but like last week, for some reason, I was in a storytelling mood. And so on Instagram, like every day last week, I told a story. Every day on my Insta stories. It ranged from, I talked about how I was stressed out about putting up my tree for Christmas and how I had to unpack that with my therapist because I was dealing with perfectionism. It touched on, you know, something that happened to me when I took a vacation. It touched on a lot of things, but I talk about therapy and mental health often. And I feel that I've experienced that when I say things like that, or even when I did those stories, so many people hit me up in my DMs, and they were just like, I thought I was the only one, or I'm so glad you said this, or I never would have guessed this about you because you look like you have it all together. And so I just think the more people, and I know it's hard, but the more people are open about it, the more people will see like, you know, this is something that happens. It's something that happens in life, and it's okay. And it is okay to talk to somebody about it, and it is okay to get treatment for it, and it is okay to go to therapy.
Right. And I gotta say this. I'm sorry. This is the minister in me coming out. So y'all give me a minute. Just make me a space.
Yes.
When you're feeling this way, perfection is only found in God. Don't expect perfection out of yourself. To everybody watching, if you're expecting perfection, you're lying. If you're expecting perfection, you're from yourself. You're lying to the person that matters most, and that's you. God didn't create us to be perfect. He created us to be loved perfectly by Him. So find love with Him. Find love with Him, and then find the help that He has for you. Okay? Because trust me, I'm that way. My mom's that way. Shani knows that anything. Case in point, if I lose something in the house, Shani will tell you I will not sleep until I find it, because it's in my head that I'm not supposed to lose things. But the boy's godmother told me, if you can't find it, God doesn't need you to have it. So just go to sleep. And it's sometimes God has to put us in our place. His scripture, one of my favorite scriptures, says His strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. So He had to give us weaknesses so we could experience His perfect strength. So everybody out there, especially my women that are doing all they can and striving to be perfect, stop lying to yourself. Go to the person, go to the being that is the only perfect one out there. Let Him love you perfectly, and then strengthen you where you're not perfect. That's when we become whole. All right, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Dr. Black, I have one comment and one last question. I have to admit, he's amazing. Okay. Lord, He helped me marry an amazing, smart person.
This is not the relationship
episode. Yeah, whatever. But what I like, Dr. Black, is that you're young. I'm young too, but you're young and you don't have any children, and you're able to just say, life is not perfect. I may look nice and everything on the outside, but I have baggage too. And you're willing to just put it out there. You know how many young people look at you and you're like an inspiration for many of them.
Right.
And when you said you were saying stories, this week was, I think everybody had stories, because this week on my TikTok, I started talking about trying. Even when you fail, keep trying. Fall and get up and try again, and fall again and get up and try again. So all of us have this same dynamic in all of us. All of us fail. All of us have problems. Moms, grandmoms, dads, uncles, sons, all of us have problems, and it's okay to have those problems, but it's not okay to keep and internalize those problems. Because it can destroy you from the inside out. But the last question was, if you could offer one piece of advice as the most important action to take to help people improve their health, their mental health, their overall being, what would you say?
Exercise. Hands down.
Oh, God. No. Come on. You're supposed to give me a magic pill, Dr. Black. That's work.
It is work.
No. There's no exercise. I mean, there's no pill. Sorry. It's exercise.
It's hard. It's hard as a mom. Because one minute my body was slimmed down like it's supposed to. Then all of a sudden my tummy just gets huge.
But it's hard as a person. And this ain't about mom. I'm gonna step in on this one. It's hard as a person. But I guess it's important. So go ahead, Dr. Black. We interrupted. I'm sorry. Behave yourself.
Yes, sir.
I can be having the worst day. And as soon as I exercise, my problem might not be fixed. It's still there. But I have so much clarity, and I just feel so much better about myself, and I just feel so much better about life. exercise, and then we all know like exercise releases endorphins and it does this and it does that. You need to exercise. It is not just for physical health. Please believe me when I tell you it is for mental health as well. Exercise, that's my answer, hands down.
Well, I guess
she's right. I have to admit, when I'm just in my funk and I'll just get my weights, listen to some Encanto. I don't know if you watched the movie. Encanto.
Yes, I have. Yes.
No,
I like the pressure song better. I like the big strong Luis's song better. I like Luis's song better. Pressure.
But like you say, it's like everything just, it seems like the day gets brighter. You're 100% right, Dr.
That is true. That is very, very true.
Yeah.
I think one thing that may not get mentioned about exercise as much is when you exercise, when you put forth the effort and the time to exercise, it's an investment in you. So you feel good about investing in you. It shows that you value yourself, and it's a self-repeating cycle that, hey, this is good for me. I'm doing what's good for me. So I feel good about me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. That's true. I get it. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up, but now it's time for our daily health tip. Okay, and this is my 1 minute a month where I tell people some tip I read or heard on a podcast that I've tried and it actually works. If you're like me and you work, and I know women out there, all of y'all have kids and homes and bills and jobs and all this sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, sometimes one of the hardest things to do is sleep because you can't turn your mind off. And Shani will tell you this about me, that one of the things I struggle with is turning my mind off to go to sleep. Well, one technique that has been proven to work, research has backed this up, it's evidence-based. I've tried it. I'm not consistent with it, but I've tried it. Remember, my word for the year is better. Not perfect, but better. Yeah. So it's called the Bedtime Mind Dump. Whatever you're thinking about, just get a piece of paper, write it down. Don't write down solutions. Don't write down plans. Don't just write down what's in your mind. In your, at bedtime, I'm gonna write this down. In the morning, I'll read it, because that act of writing it down takes it from your brain to the paper, and a lot of times it helps you stop. It helps you effectively move that out of tonight and into tomorrow. So again, don't sit there and start planning, because when you start planning, then that process gets long. It's literally like with me. At work right now, I've got staffing issues, budget issues, and I've got an outcome survey coming up. I got all that to do. But I just write it down. Think about staffing, worry about budget. And when I dump that stuff into that journal, it stops me from having to think I need to solve it tonight. So that brain dump helps to create that stopgap for your mind, because guess what? Exercise is great. It's perfect. But guess what our body also needs? Rest. We've got sleep.
Rest.
So daily health tip for this week: if you are having trouble stopping your mind, get you what you can name it whatever you want, a dump journal or whatever. At night, just write down those things and then put it on your nightstand. Pick it up in the morning. But that act of stopping it where it is and starting it the next day gives you a space to let your mind rest at night. Okay?
That's good.
So that being said, women, take care of yourselves, because God knows we as men need you.
Yeah.
We can't do this without y'all. Take care of yourself. Okay. Dr. Black, you have been an awesome guest. Yeah. Thank you so, so very much. It was good to see you.
Thanks so much for asking me. This was so nice.
Well, I'm so glad you were willing to do it for us. I know you're busy, but I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure our audience will appreciate it as well. So thank you so much.
Can I ask one last question? Do you have a word for the year? Okay, can we get into yes? Or you said yes for something.
I have a word. You waiting on me to say my word?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So my word is patience.
Wow.
And the reason why that is my word is because I am not a patient person at all. I want to know what's going on, and I want to know what's going on now. Like, God needs to tell me what's going to happen so I can start to plan. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes, and my mind is just always moving so fast, I don't think I stop to just really, take in moments as they happen, because I can't wait. I just want to know what's coming next. And so for me, since this year has started, I've just been trying to have a lot more patience, just for life in general, and I've just been trying to like take things as they come and not trying to read too much into things, and yeah, patience.
I love it. I love it.
That's perfect.
What was your word for the year?
Greater.
Greater.
Mine was greater. What I've been doing is, I started this last week. I do my workout, and then I go into a prayer closet. I created a few months ago, and I'll watch a Bible study and just write. And once I'm done, I move on to my day. And it's been doing wonders.
That sounds good. That's good.
My word for the year was just better, because I'm the type of person that I don't want to start something if I'm not absolutely certain I can be 100% consistent and perfect with it. So I had to say better, because there's a lot of things I want to start and do that I think I need to get into. So if I get partly the way there, now my intention is to finish, but not punish myself if I don't finish what I think I should finish, because I'm better than I was when I started. So that's my word for the year, is better. That's my word for the year, is better. So with all that, so everybody out there that's watching, y'all were with us in January, put in the comments or send us a message about how you're doing with your word for the year. And we're going to have a recap. We're going to maybe a 6-month checkup on your word for the year.
Dr. Black, would you like to leave your handles, your socials, for anybody if they want to start following you or want to send you a DM if you feel like answering, for the audience?
You still there? Can you hear us, Dr. Black? What just happened? Oh.
Hello?
It froze. Hold on. Oh.
We're still here.
We're still here, but I don't know if she can hear us.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll get that information to you at some point somehow. But we want to wrap up the show. We're about almost 15 minutes over. It's been beautiful. It's been great. I don't know if Dr. Black's still there with us. The devil's trying to fight. He knows this is doing good for people. So that's all right. He's going to be okay, though. He's going to lose. But thank you again for watching Healthy and Whole in Mind, Body, and Soul. We love you all for supporting us. Again, this has been a whole year we've been at this. We've had some highs and some lows and some goods and some not so goods. But it's always great to be here to help. So please continue to join us. Please continue. Women, take care of your health. Be transparent. Be vulnerable. Ask questions. Don't take no for an answer if there's a concern. And at the end of the day, we need to sleep. Do your mind up. Do your mind up and stick with your word for the year. Y'all be blessed. Come back to see us next month if God's willing, and stay in the fight. Don't give up. Women, we got your back. We got your back. We're going to battle for you. We're gonna throw blows for you. All right. So
well, have a great evening. So we're checking out Healthy and Whole
in Mind, Body, and Soul. Y'all be good. We'll see you next time.
Bye.